Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's football show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam Cowan and Darren Jackson here with me today. Delighted you could join us. Don't forget to hit the follow and the share button on your Facebook page. And also, if you get a chance, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel as well. Delighted you could join us here on the football show. Lots to talk about. And of course, the Scotland squad is the first port of call, because Steve Clarke has announced the squad for the World Cup qualifiers, and there's a few names that obviously you'll be happy with who are in there, maybe some that you wanted in there. Here is indeed the squad, how it looks with Gordon, Marshall, McLaughlin, Considine, Gallagher, Hanley, Hendry, McKenna, O'Donnell, Palmer, Robertson, Taylor, Tierney, Stuart Armstrong is in there, Ryan Christie, John Fleck, Ryan Jack, and John McGinn, Callum McGregor, Kenny McLean, Scott McTominay, Che Adams, Lyndon Dykes, Ryan Fraser, Ollie McBurney, and Kevin Nisbet. So that is the squad. Obviously, we'll hear from the Scotland manager shortly, but Gabriel Antoniazzi just gives us a little insight into Che Adams.
Che Adams has been included in the Scotland squad for the first time, but who is he? The 24-year-old was born in Leicester and is eligible to play for England through his birth, Antigua through his father, and Scotland through his grandmother. The striker began his career in non-league football before successful spells at Sheffield United and Birmingham City in the lower divisions. This earned him a £50 million move to Southampton in the Premier League, where he scored 11 times over the past 2 seasons and formed a formidable partnership up top with Danny Ings. Adams has represented England under-20s and was wanted by Antigua, but despite originally turning Scotland down 3 years ago, he's now pledged his future to Steve Clarke's team, just in time for the summer's European Championships.
Well, what do you make of that, Roughie?
Well, it's. I think it's a good addition. We all know how weak we are in that department. So if he can come in, and obviously he'll get a try out in the games that are coming up, and hopefully successful, because I think it's a one position that we definitely are not strong in. And if he can give us something, I know the boy Dykes come in and did it for a wee while, but he hasn't been playing well down there. So no, I think any introduction to somebody who is not well known to everybody, but let's hope we can get into an international setup and score goals.
Yeah, depending on an appeal, Austria could be playing against us with a depleted side, Darren. Then you've got, of course, the usual game against Israel. It feels a bit like Scotland-Israel's like Hearts against Partick Thistle. They just play each other every week. And then it's at the Faroe Islands. So 3 not bad games to get a real insight into Che Adams.
Yes, Peter, I mentioned that a few months ago that he was eligible and that we had a chance. Now, do I think qualifying for the European Championships has helped? I think 100%. I think Stuart Armstrong's probably helped, telling them that they look as though they've got a fantastic team spirit now. So, listen, I think he'll play. He's the only one in there, Peter, that's actually playing regular. Ryan Fraser hasn't scored for Newcastle this year. McBurney, they're down the bottom of the league, they're not doing that well. Nisbet's not been playing and Dykes hasn't been playing. So, and he's obviously just decided that Griffiths obviously hasn't been playing for Celtic and he's not going to take a chance on him. So I think he looks good. I think he's one that he can play up front himself, looks powerful, looks quick, can score goals. We saw that with Lyndon Dykes in a few games playing up front, holding it up, letting the midfield get to support him, letting the defence get out. And he looked to me as he's an honest boy that will work really hard. And I'm sure he'll be delighted that he's getting this chance.
Here's Steve Clarke on the new addition to the squad.
Thankfully for us, I heard a little whisper early last week, that he was looking forward or had decided that he wanted to come on board. I had a good chat with him a couple of times last week, and things moved very quickly thanks to Frank Riley and the admin staff at the Scottish FA. The paperwork's been done and a name Che in the squad. It's an area of the team that we have to try and improve.
Well, just picking up on that, Tam, I mean, first of all, great for him. I think we're a country that needs to try every angle we possibly can to get better quality in. But it's a real blow for Lee Griffiths. This door is slowly but surely shutting on him.
Yeah, but I think Lee Griffiths, and being the great impact player that he can be, should maybe just have his sights set on the actual finals in the summer, the Euro 2020 finals, which of course are being played this summer. I've got a feeling that he could still play a large part in that, and I would quite like to see. I know this is a completely different tournament, Peter, that we're playing these games in, these qualifiers again, but you know, I would still like to see Stevie Clarke just trying to fashion his top starting 11 in these games with a view to the summer and see if we can make any sort of impact. But I'm a firm believer, Peter. I know that it's par for the course in programmes like this, and pundits have to do it, and folk in the radio, the newspapers and the telly, you're meant to maybe sometimes overanalyse squads. But, you know, we were absolutely clamouring for Stevie Clarke to come in as Scotland boss. You would have to say that he got after a bit of a flyer of a start, by getting us to our first finals since 1998. So I'm a firm believer in just letting the guy get on with it and bring into the squad, and indeed the starting lineup, whoever he likes. And I must say as well, I'm delighted still to see a couple of the Motherwell boys in there with Declan Gallagher and Stephen O'Donnell. You know, you could have argued that that's a slight surprise given the season that we've had, but I don't think they've let Scotland down so far. And I would even argue that we could have maybe edged Liam Kelly, our on loan goalkeeper for QPR, and he's been in brilliant for them. But over the piece, Peter, I'm always one of these guys that appreciates Stevie Clarke knows a hell of a lot more about it than everybody else, including the Scotland fans. Let him go on, mate, and wish him well.
Yeah, I think he's loyal to a lot of people who have actually served him well, which is a fair indication of his loyalty to two Motherwell players and beyond, players who have contributed for him. I think he tries to retain that sense of loyalty at Roughie. And of course, I think right now, you know, over in East Kilbride, Roughie, Tam will be sobbing uncontrollably because McManus's favourite player of all time, Kevin Nisbet's in there.
Yeah, I think we all know what the boy can do. Obviously went off the boil there for a wee while, but I can't see him forcing his self into the final 11. I think he's a player that you would have sort of a hanging about, but because I think other people have got a head start on him. You know, I know he might start scoring goals regularly now to the end of the season, but not a ready-made starter for me when the big games come around.
Oh, interesting point there. Here's what Steve Clarke makes of Nisbet.
Yes, it is, but I think he's shown this year in the Scottish Premier League that he's got an eye for a goal. He can score at that level. He's been good. I like his movement. I like the way he gets free in the box. And like I said before, it is an area of the pitch where I have to keep looking because we need to score more goals. We haven't scored many goals recently. In fact, the last three goal scorers are in the squad. Dykes, Fraser and Christie. They're all there, but it would be nice if we could get more from the forward players, and that's the reasoning behind putting two new caps into the forward area of the pitch.
Well, he got a goal at the weekend. He scored 14 in total, Nisbet. Will there be a wee bit of disappointment, Darren, that there's no David Turnbull?
We were speaking, obviously, before we came on with Tam and that, and Tam's obviously, because he's at Motherwell, and I understand where Tam's coming from, and I understand where the question's asked, but that's probably the biggest, the hardest place to get into is the midfield. I think the midfield settled. I mean, he's playing McTominay at the back, so is he going to step in, and then that's another player for centre mid. So I think David's time will definitely come. The way he's taken to playing with Celtic, he's been fantastic. He's been a revelation this season. But I think his time will come. But I just think, could he be in the squad? Yes, he could be in the squad. But I think the manager's got to prepare for the championships rather than just bringing in boys in just to have a wee look at them just now. I think he's got to have a focus on the tournament as well as these games. But yes, he could have been in, but I understand why he's not in.
Yeah, I mean, here's Steve Clarke's take on it.
Yeah, good player, David, and done well this year to break into the Celtic team. looks a good prospect for us. Unfortunately for David, he's trying to get into what is probably the strongest area of the pitch. I mean, I mentioned Ryan Christie, you've got Ryan Fraser, Stuart Armstrong, John McGinn, all as attacking midfield players, and it's an area of the pitch that we're strong in. But I'm sure if David keeps up his current form, his chance won't be too far away.
Yeah, listen, the good thing is, as you said, Tam, and I think it is the key to all this, he's got options. There are other players maybe that some people feel should be in. I mean, I look at Billy Gilmore and I think to myself, you know, if only he could get a regular run somewhere, you know, Billy Gilmore would be one of those guys you'd think, I mean, he's a top drawer player. It just hasn't been able to force his way into Thomas Tuchel's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we've all got our own favourites, Peter, and clearly, as a Motherwell fan, I still am. I'm a huge fan of Davy Turnbull, and I was right with my prediction that once he get into that Celtic team, you wouldn't get him back out of it. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. One of the rare, maybe plus points for Celtic fans, certainly in the second half of this season. But by way of a wee prediction, Peter, let me just say that after the summer, I think Stevie Clarke will be picking David Turnbull, perhaps even on a weekly basis.
Yes, that's exactly what I mentioned yesterday, Tam. I mentioned to more than a few people, and Roughie, as Tam's alluding to there, Celtic, potentially, he's one of those guys that is constantly in the running. Certainly, as I've tried to analyse, Roughie, everybody who's in the running for the Celtic job, Steve Clarke, for me, is the strongest candidate that I think could be the main man.
Yeah, I think we've all debated that, and I think the biggest hurdle is obviously the Rangers Celtic thing and what goes on round about that. To be a Celtic manager, you're going to have to deal with all that. I think Steve's quite a family man. I don't think he'd want to bring all that pressure onto his family life. I think the Scotland jobs are not a comfy job, but the pressures go along with that. But I think moving into Celtic, it's another dimension of your life. It's your whole life changing, you know, and just with some of his comments, I'm not too sure, you know, if that's what he wants at this precise time. I think it all depends on what happens with the Euros, you know, how well we do there. But he's already went on record saying, I've got a contract here to take Scotland to the World Cup finals. So he needs to come out and give us an idea. But no, I don't think it's 100% that's the job he's after.
Yeah, I have to say though, I raised a smile there, Roughie, when you said manager says I have a contract. That's as if that's set in stone. Dearie me. Thanks to so many people posting messages who they think should be and who shouldn't. Hi to Rick Stark, who's watching from Canada. So many people watching from the UK and abroad as well. We really appreciate your support. So there are players in there that people will be happy with. There are some where we're wondering whether Shea Adams can step up to the plate. Fingers crossed, here's hoping we've got another option up front. And there are players that we've discussed that maybe should be in there or have a chance still before we get to the Euros. Of course, the great thing is, Tam, the way things are looking, you never know. We might actually get to a situation where there will be some fans watching Scotland in a stadium, the way things are going at the moment.
Yeah, we might. I mean, it's looking as if certainly May the 17th, we were talking about this before we came on air, it looks as if all the restaurants will be reopened properly and fully, which is a great move forward. And then, you know, add another month into the diary and you're into June, European finals are there. And we do need some fans here because, Peter, as we've mentioned all season on this programme, there's only really been the odd game, which has either been a high-profile enough game or a good enough game to make you forget the fans weren't there. And I reckon we're going to have another one on Thursday night. I know you'll be coming to it soon, but Rangers against Slavia Prague, I think that is beautifully poised. I think it's going to be a cracker. And I think if you tune into that match, you'll forget the fact that there are no fans there. But the bottom line is we don't want to have a situation of our first major tournament in what will be 23 years with no Scotland fans there at places like Hampden and, of course, at Wembley. That would just be so wrong. So, again, we've all just got to behave. We've all just got to, calm our jets and hopefully we'll be able to enjoy football as it's meant to be enjoyed after having clicked through a turnstile come the European Championships.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. Big hi to Gary McNutt, who says, I'm having morning coffee on the west coast of Canada. We seem to have a lot of expats from Canada tuning into this show as well, Roughie. Just on the point that Tam was making there, we can see this kind of a pathway out of this with everybody getting either a jag or indeed being allowed slowly but surely to meet outside, get your hair cut, Roughie. Everything slowly but surely is looking as if there's a pathway to normality, Roughie. I certainly can't wait for the haircut, for the jag, the lot.
Yeah, I think we're all like that. I think if you listen to her today, she does want to relax most of the things. Unfortunately, as Tam said there, that everyone's going to be relaxing the 17th of May, which isn't going to be much good to us because they want to know by the 10th of April. Are we going to be free? And if we don't let them know on the 10th of April, then we're not going to have it. So she'll have to come out with something else, to reassure the powers that be that 17th of May and further on we are going to allow the fans, because the way she was talking today, she was talking into June, and that's obviously when the finals are. So there would have to be a lot of rearrangements for that to happen. But I hope it does happen. I really do. It's just that she's still been very, very cagey. And 10th of April is the decision time for whether we have it or not.
Well, I think she's already gone on record.
What though, Peter?
Yeah.
Sorry, see, at the risk of contradicting myself, I mean, I'm saying about how the big games that we've been able to enjoy this season, where you can almost kind of forget there's no crowd there. Maybe I did contradict myself there, because the bottom line is Scotland playing England at Wembley. If we did have to watch that at home and there were no fans there, surely that's one fixture that is absolutely going to grab your attention, and you might even get away with not having any fans there, because the really disheartening thing, I think, Peter, would be if we did open, let's say, Hampden, or we did open Wembley for games at the European Championships, and they were only sparsely filled. Because I'll ask Darren about that and ask Roughie about that. Sometimes I would imagine for players playing in front of sparsely filled stadia, it can feel worse than maybe if the place was just empty,
Yeah, you're probably right, Tam. I mean, I did it every week when I was at Meadowbank, so I was quite used to it. But I will say, and I think Peter will back me up on this, I think the games are getting... I watched Porto and Juventus last week, and I don't care if I've watched games with crowds and without crowds. It was the best game I've seen for years. It was unbelievable, and there was obviously no crowd there. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think going to the Euros, Tam, the boys, would we love the fans to be there? Would the players love the fans to be there? We're hoping it's not going to be 23 years again. Hopefully they're going to qualify for the next tournaments. But if it's not, if it's maybe the boys' only tournament, you want fans to be there. I mean, I was lucky enough to be at Euro 96, even though I was on the bench at Wembley. And the atmosphere was just mind-blowing. It was incredible. So you want the boys to experience that. But if you could get tickets, would the boys like fans to be there? Maybe some family to be there, just to witness them playing for their country in a tournament. I think it would be great.
Yeah, interesting point you make though, Darren, because Roughie, Porto against Juventus that we were raving about was a great game because there was something at stake. Juventus had to go and chase the game, and they had to try and get the goals to get themselves through. Didn't work out for them in the end. My feeling, and Dan and I regularly actually talk to each other ahead of some of these games that are on. I don't know how you feel about it, Tam, as well, but Roughie, I think I can't wait for fans to get back in, because some of the games I actually think it's not that the players are treating it like a training game. It's the way they're playing. They're more often than not, if the ball goes back, they're playing it back to the back line. They're playing it across the back line. The game's slowed down. The crowd has an impact on your decision making. And I think there would be more excitement to the games, certainly more brave passes from people rather than some of the turgid football that you're watching. I mean, at times, Manchester United used to be great to watch. Can't watch them. And I've watched in Scotland a lot of teams just playing the ball along the back line. You're thinking, see if there was 60,000 or 50,000 or 20,000 in here, they'd be going tonto at this.
Yeah, I think we all agree now that a really good crowd makes a bad game good, just by the atmosphere and the banter that goes on round about it. Darren's been lucky enough to be going to games. I've been lucky enough to be going to games as a director with Thistle, and you're right. For me, it's a damp squid. It's just 90 minutes of just sitting there, just watching it happening. And if you get a wee bit of magic, it's great. But I honestly don't know how the players can lift themselves in that kind of atmosphere. It's a tough one mentally, I think, to get your head round it. The environment it doesn't add anything to the game. And it just shows you the sooner we get supporters back in there, I think we'll all start to enjoy it again.
Yeah, do you agree with that, Tam? That there's sometimes the flatness of the game. There's a safety in the play.
Yeah, absolutely. For a while there, Peter, I thought if we were just using that as an excuse, be saying that this game, whatever game you happen to be watching, I mean, normally what happens when I finish doing our show on a Saturday, I can watch all the games coming in and obviously position myself in front of the screen that's got the Motherwell game on. But you always have a wee glance at the other games, and some of them, when they have been really, really poor, you're just prone to saying, oh, it's because there's no fans here. It seems 100 times worse. I hope that is the case. Because I'd hate to think that we were able to get back with several thousand punters inside or the stadia in Scotland, and the games were still rank, because there have been a few howlers this season. But you know what? You're absolutely right that if you have got a full house, if you do have a great atmosphere, I'm prone to say it sometimes you can even forgive the result, because going back to Euro 96, the tournament Darren was talking about there when he was on the bench at England, I was in the stands that particular game. And yeah, when you think back, a very, very sore one for all the drama that was in the game with Gaza and with Gary McAllister's penalty and all the claptrap about Uri Geller being up in a helicopter. But I still would not have swapped that for anything, even though we did lose to the old enemy. To be there that day and to savour that atmosphere. And I'd say the same for the one that Darren knows only too well, the Brazil-Scotland World Cup opener 1998, an absolute sickener over the piece. But you just love the fact that you were able to go there and witness something like that, and I think it'll be great. I think it'll be really strange. It'll be like a very furtive first date almost, Peter. I think when fans get back into the football, I think it's going to feel strange. And I think some fans will even be loath, even the real loudmouths of days gone by might be loath to start just absolutely getting belted into the players for not getting the ball up the park, etc., etc. So I think there'll be a whole process goes on there, but I can't wait. And I'm now looking at domestically, certainly, Peter, for it being the start of next season. Fingers crossed when we do get the crowds back in. But bring it on. It's been sorely, sorely missed.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there Darren in Scotland and Brazil. I didn't know that. Darren hasn't mentioned that on the programme before. It's a bit like rough.
What I'll say is, I would rather have been in the dressing room at Wembley, because that would mean I was playing, I was sub. It's the best half time I've ever spent on a football pitch. The Scotland fans singing "Rocking All Over the World." The English fans just stood there and were amazed that a group of supporters can enjoy themselves so much. It was just a pleasure to watch. Actually, the subs didn't really warm up. They just actually stood and watched the fans, because it was just absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely fantastic. Listen, news just coming in. Might as well read it out, because Roughie, it has implications for you. The SPFL has confirmed the approval of the resolution covering how League One and League Two seasons will be concluded. Clubs now have until the 23rd of April to complete 18 fixtures. If this is met by all clubs in each division, the post-split fixtures will then be published. If any clubs are unable to complete their 18 fixtures by the 23rd of April, then the post-split fixture dates for that division will be used to ensure that every club has completed 18 matches by the 6th of May in time for participation in the promotion and relegation playoffs. With, of course, the number of games now confirmed, the SPFL has also published the full fixture list, Roughie, up to and including match day 18 for both League One and League Two. What's your thoughts?
I'm just happy to be back. Everybody's happy to be back. Unfortunately, you didn't have enough time to read out that whole resolution because there's another 5 pages on it with quite a lot of penalties along the way if you don't fulfil these fixtures. So I think a lot of the teams are a wee bit worried, but we're getting back. We're getting back to play. It's going to be a wee bit unfair in the likes of Clyde, who are going to have to play maybe Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. But I think everybody just wants to get the season. We don't want to get through the situation as the last year, when you're not fulfilling the fixtures, and then you're starting to take that ratio of points and all that carry on. So no, we've got Evans in front of us. We've just got to get on with it and hope there's no any complications.
Yeah, absolutely. Roughie, to be perfectly honest with you, it just came up on my feed there. I had to quickly look at the abbreviated version and read that out. There are 5 pages, Roughie, which obviously you're aware I can't read out. Although I have mentioned here, page 4 mentions any team playing in red and yellow will be relegated on a WhatsApp group. So really bad news for you there, Roughie, again on that one. Anyway, just delighted your mob are getting back playing and you can now stop moaning on this programme regularly. Let's hope you guys finish your all your games and you don't get any penalties. Okay, listen, games. We'll talk about Rangers against Slavia Prague, as Tam mentioned as well. There's Champions League football to look forward to. We're also going to hear from Dave Cormack, the Aberdeen chairman, on the way ahead and who's going to be the manager and what's the state of play at the moment. I know Don's fans will be wondering about that. Of course, we haven't really kind of heard anything from Nicola on any major change of heart on whether the Old Firm game is going to go ahead or not. She did release a quick statement on it saying in terms of the case numbers, we've seen an increase in the last week. As the Chief Medical Officer said last week, there have been a small number of cases of people that were gathering as part of a football incident last weekend. We may see more of that given the incubation of the virus that may not have fully worked its way through yet, but we also need to be really open-eyed about this. This is a virus. So anytime we open up and people start to come together, there is greater opportunity for transmission. Now, obviously, the last thing we want to hear is the game is off, Darren. So basically, Celtic and Rangers have gone into overdrive. Managers, players, all saying, stay at home, save lives, don't go anywhere near Celtic Park.
100%, Peter. The clubs have got to do it. Whether you can blame Rangers for what happened last week, it's very hard. 10 years, they were always going to come out and celebrate. Whether doing it 2 days in a row was a bit of a disaster for everybody. But we just hope that people listen to the clubs because you want the game on. Surely Rangers fans want the game on so they think they can go and win at Celtic Park. The Celtic fans must want the game on so they can go and show that maybe it is a dead season in terms of not being able to win the league, but go and beat them so they don't go through the season undefeated. So there's an incentive there for both teams and an incentive there for both fans. So I hope they listen to the clubs and stay at home and enjoy the game in their house.
Yeah, I hope every section, even groups of fans who are under a banner of whatever collective they like to be known as, there's a wee bit of friction going into this, and certainly I hope it doesn't go against the decision on this game going ahead. The Union Bears is a group who've released a statement regarding a level of unprecedented intimidation they feel they're being subjected to after a weekend of celebrations and the subsequent media outcry. A section of the Rangers support has become subject to an increased level of pressure and intimidation tactics from Police Scotland. Members of the Union Bears have had officers visit their house, threatened to contact their place of work and been instructed to visit their local station. These policing strategies are nothing new. However, the enforcement of their message is unprecedented. On one occasion, officers visited a member's home who has a young family 7 times within a 48-hour period. We as a group have withstood attacks and threats from Police Scotland since our creation. These disruptive policing techniques will not have the desired effect, and we will continue supporting Rangers in our unique manner. So, Listen, the last thing you want to see is confrontation. But to be perfectly honest with you, if the police have to use specific tactics to stop individuals who will not obey any rules, Tam, then more power to them.
Yeah, and they'll be doing it for the Rangers fans at large, of course, because, they won't want the club to get into any sort of bother as a result of any fan disturbances on Sunday. And you can only hope that the game will go ahead. You only hope the message will get through. I thought the statement from Steven Gerrard was excellent. It's exactly, if you recall, Peter, what I advocated on the programme last Tuesday. I thought he is the kind of godlike figure at the club just now. He can do no wrong. And I thought a message from him would absolutely get the message home to the Rangers fans, and that's what's happened. Because if the game get called off, I mean, then there's all sorts of ramifications that you don't even want to think about in terms of the legality of the issue. I'm sure Sky Sports, who have pumped £125 million over 5 years into Scottish football, they might have something to say about it, because they're, in terms of sponsorship and advertising and all the rest of it, the clubs themselves, it's a nightmare scenario for them. Even if you want to talk about them as a global brand, it doesn't look too good if they have to get a game called off, because somebody, sent me a message this week. It was very funny, saying that only in Glasgow could a behind closed door game be at risk of getting called off due to crowd disturbance. I mean, that's a classic, But the police will do their work. And although over the piece, whether it's the Union Bears or the Green Brigade or our own Well Boys in Mallow, I've always got a certain sympathy for these groups of fans, because by and large, they are the supporters who, in the good old days, brought the atmosphere to the stadium, maybe when games might have been a bit quiet otherwise. But you just urge everybody to behave. Let's get this game done, get it out the way. Rangers obviously want to go there as champions and put on a show. Celtic want to put down a wee statement of intent, as if, here you go, we want to win this one, show that we're going to be back next season. There is a lot at stake on the pitch, but you can only hope that it gets the nod and we get on with it and get this season crawling over the finishing line.
Yeah, Scott Brown has written a letter to the Celtic fans as well. Here's what he had to say to try and obviously continue this message to both sets of supporters. We're still in a very difficult situation, and while I've made some good progress, so many people are continuing to contract the virus. So many in hospital, and of course, tragically, people are still dying. He goes on to say we need to do all we can to look after each other and protect ourselves and our families. We know it's been so difficult for our fans not being part of matches, but they have done brilliantly throughout the pandemic. Our supporters have been great in sticking to the guidelines, even after we've won the league and another treble. So we just need more of the same. Our priority will always be the safety of our fans, and that is all we want to ensure. So our message, once again, is enjoy our matches from home and keep you and your family safe. And I noticed there was a video released today with Rangers fans saying, stay home, save lives, protect the NHS. So there's a continued effort, Roughie. And I think, you only have to look at Roughie, Darren and Gabriel, myself and you were outside Celtic Park for one of the Old Firm games. I think it was last season. And again, the fans were told not to come anywhere near Celtic Park, but you could hear the Green Brigade on the outskirts banging the drum, and they were clearly within earshot of and close proximity to Celtic Park. And I think that's what Scott Brown and all the players and the managers have mentioned as well. Obey the rules. Listen to what people are telling you. Anybody who now actually defiantly comes near the ground, they should suffer the full wrath of what the police have at their disposal, which is fines. And for some people who actually, want to cause any problems, Roughie, I think there should be bans handed out to them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this one is more serious than the one you're talking about, because it's day on day now. Everybody's getting a warning, whether it's for Scott Brown, whether it's for Rangers, whether it's for the government, whether it's for the police. It's every day it's getting thrown out there. So if you're an idiot that's going to turn up, knowing there's going to be a cordon of police, I mean, a really, really heavy duty police presence, who are telling everybody that if you turn up, you're going to get arrested. And if you're daft enough to go along there and B, I don't know how far away you're going to be from the park where the cordon and the police are going to be there, and yet you are going to get lifted, and you've got to be serious enough. And the police have said there, and I think it was one of the statements as well, you've got to think of your job as well and your family. If you get arrested, you're going to have a conviction, and I'm sure whoever you work with is not going to be happy with that either. So it's a bit of common sense. And if anybody goes along there at the weekend, they deserve everything that's coming their way.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, listen, we get lots of messages, lots of sensible messages on the programme, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on our YouTube channel. We're not going to deal in whataboutery about what about them. It's quite simply that both sets of fans at one point have broken the rules on this. And that's why both teams, with their managers, with their players, are sending out the message. So anybody who doesn't actually get it into their head, should suffer the full force of the law on this one. Don't come near the ground. It's such a volatile situation at times. These games can be, and you certainly wouldn't want anybody there in close proximity to each other. And obviously, with this virus, we're not out of the woods yet. So that's the issue of Celtic against Rangers. Rangers are playing Slavia Prague on Thursday. We'll talk about it in detail tomorrow on the programme. But Tam, it looks as if, the way the whole thing's going with the coefficient here, Celtic could be one of the seeded teams in the third qualifying draw. This would be fantastic if Rangers could get past Slavia Prague and then be in the draw on Friday. But I get the feeling this one's on a knife edge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I must admit, after the highs of Rangers clinching the title, when they lost that goal in Prague after about 6 minutes, it had a sense of bubbles being burst, and maybe even understandably, as I saw somebody tweeting at the time after the one each draw about Rangers saying, just think how much better it would have been if every player hadn't been bluttered. I'm sure, of course, that wasn't quite the case, but the celebrations did, of course, go into full throttle after clinching the title. So it got a one each draw out there last Thursday, I thought was magnificent and well deserved, of course. Everybody thought it was going to be 2-1 Slavia Prague, but Alan McGregor made that quite incredible save. So I personally can't wait for this one on Thursday night, Peter. It's going to be one of those games where you won't miss the crowd. I think all eyes will be on the pitch, and then there's that carrot that's been dangled in front of Rangers about just exactly who they could get in the next round and indeed how far they can go in this tournament. So it's one of those games, and there haven't been enough of them this season, quite frankly, but it's one of those games that even for for a Scottish football fan's perspective, as a neutral, as a Motherwell fan, I am really looking forward to it. And as always, in Europe, I'll be cheering for the Scottish team.
Yeah, I think I've got a sneaky feeling, Darren, that Rangers can win this one 2-1 because I think there would have been the high of celebrating the title. There would have been, maybe somebody had a few sherbets with their family at home to celebrate. You couldn't begrudge them that. So I get the feeling, that this time around, all the focus is at home. And I think Rangers are good enough, even though Slavia Prague knocked out Chelsea with the 2-0 at Leicester City, knocked out Leicester City 2-0 at their ground. I think Rangers can do it at home. What about you?
Listen, Peter, you wouldn't write it off. I mean, they've been incredible in Europe. Obviously, they've done really well all season. But they've been incredible in Europe. And yes, I didn't see all the game, but the first half they were under the caution, put under a lot of pressure. And as Tam said about Alan McGregor's save at the end. But that's everyone pulling together and that's everyone doing their bit. And McGregor's, it was a wonderful save. But I think you've just got to think that how good have Leicester been this season? They've been absolutely incredible. And that team went there and won 2-0. So I think they'll play the exact same way away from home as they do at home. I think they'll have possession of the ball. I know Rangers are a possession team. And at home they normally have probably 70% possession, but I don't think it'll be that this time. So I think it'll be a lot harder than people will think.
Yeah. Tam, here's a wee question for you before I get Roughie's prediction on it. Just out of curiosity, Darren, what's the score?
I think it'll go to extra time. I'm not 100% sure, Peter.
Well, that's all we've got time for now for that long duration of breathing there. Hope you enjoyed the show. Tam, the goalie, we mentioned there the top drawer save. I think, I'm almost certain, when I was looking today at the stats on it, I think Andy Gorham has won one more Premier League title than Alan McGregor. They've both got, Gorham's got 43 caps, I think. McGregor maybe 42. Alan McGregor's won one Scottish Cup and 5 League Cups. I think the goalie, excuse me, has won 3 Scottish Cups and 1 League Cup. Alan McGregor's won 3 League Cups and 5 League Cups and 3 Scottish Cups. So the record is fairly similar. Who's the better goalkeeper in your mind?
Well, I would actually leave it to the Rangers fans who contacted our radio show on Saturday, Peter, because when we put out what was the greatest save you have ever seen, there was so many people mentioning, of course, a famous save that Andy Gorham made from Pierre Van Hooijdonk back in the day. But whether it was just because it was fresher in the mind or whatever, but Alan McGregor won it by a country mile. There were other candidates in there. Ali Maxwell, a late save that he had from Maurice Malpass that I'm sure Darren will remember. It was quite incredible by this point in the afternoon. Ali's entire internal organs were mush, but he still somehow managed to make this fantastic save for Malpass. Craig Gordon, I still remember a cracker that he made for Hearts against Motherwell a good 15, 16 years, but still fairly fresh in my memory. But I personally thought Alan McGregor's was the best that I have ever witnessed with my own eyes, certainly in Scotland. And I just wonder, Peter, when you're looking for a prediction, I just wonder if psychologically, in the back of that save from Alan McGregor, if Rangers would be quite happy taking this into penalties, maybe after another one each draw, take it to penalties, and then the Slavia Prague boys have got to line up and take the spot kicks against Alan McGregor, who they clearly know all about the save that he made last week. And I wonder if that would just give them the wee edge in the shootout. So that's indeed going to be my prediction, Peter. Rangers 1, Slavia Prague 1, same scoreline after extra time, and Rangers to win 4-2 in the penalty shootout.
Wow. Roughie?
Yeah, I can see where the guys are coming from. This team, generally when you're drawing European opposition, they're usually strong at home and a wee bit weaker away. But this team seem to be the actual opposite of that. They seem to be the same away from home as they are at home. They play the same style, same attacking football. I tend to sway with the guys. One each. Looks like a score line that could be taken to penalties, but I'm going to go for Tam's European prediction of nothing each, and Rangers would go through.
Yeah, okay. There you are. So I've gone 2-1 Rangers, and then we've got a couple of extra times, and somebody who's hedging his bets. Simple as that. What about up at Pittodrie? Aberdeen. Listen, hedging their bets, it's going to take as long as it takes, is what Dave Cormack, the chairman, has said regarding the search for a new manager, and he has dismissed out of hand all the suggestions that people have been spoken to. Somebody's in the box seat. So he's blown all of that out. He says that they will now look at candidates that are coming in, assess it all, and then once they sift through all the applications, then they'll have a clear sight of maybe 5 or 6, Roughie, maybe even more, that they want to actually have a chat with to see if they have what it takes to take Aberdeen back where a lot of fans would like to see them, which is challenging.
It's the done thing now. The club has got to look what's out there. You've got to let the supporters know that you are thorough and whatever you're doing and who you want to bring in. There will be lots of candidates. There'll be more candidates coming out as we speak. We'll just have to wait and see. Sometimes it's up to the owner what way he wants to get down. I'm still swayed by the boy for Atlanta, and the connection there. It seems an easy fit. He's an Aberdeen boy. He's already come out with his coaching staff, and I think he's already said he could bring Harry Kane and Gareth Bale with him. So that might just sway it for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, I think Dave Cormack is certainly want to try and get the right candidate, hopefully to back him as well. I mean, there's no point in mincing our words here, Tam. One trophy in 26 years is not great for a team like Aberdeen.
No, it isn't. And what with the resurgence of Rangers and the fact that Celtic will have to be better next season, our fans will accept nothing less, then it's not exactly going to be easier for Aberdeen to win another trophy next season. So it's going to be very intriguing who they bring in. I know you'll accuse me, you see my Motherwell poster behind me, but Aberdeen could do a hell of a lot worse than Stevie Robinson. I really do. Peter, and he'd proved that he can do the business at Motherwell. That great record, getting to the 2 National Cup finals in the same season for the first time in donkey's years at Motherwell. He can do it when he's got a really, really tight budget. If Aberdeen have a tight budget, he might just be the man. But I would be fascinated to see if Aberdeen were able to loosen the purse strings and chuck a wee bit more money at the job. I'd be absolutely fascinated just to see what Stephen Robinson would be like as an operator in the dugout with a bit of cash at hand. I think the Aberdeen fans might get a really, really pleasant surprise. So I would hope Aberdeen wouldn't overlook him, but I'd hope they bring in somebody that, give the whole club a wee bit of a spark, an exciting name, something that gets the Aberdeen fans wanting to charge to Pittodrie, something that, gives Scottish football as a whole a wee bit of a shot in the arm. I really do hope they get it right because, for the very fact, I think we're now at something like 36 years since anyone out with the old firm won the league title in Scotland. That's bonkers. We do need more competition in there.
Yeah, speaking on Red TV this afternoon, Dave Cormack, certainly with a call from an Aberdeen legend, has just emphasised to everybody, whoever gets it, they've got a huge job in their hands.
I talked to Sir Alex Ferguson. He called me on Friday and he reminded me that in his opinion, I agree with him, that Aberdeen Football Club is the hardest club to manage outside of Celtic and Rangers and the hardest club to be chairman of, as he stated, as well. It's a prestigious position for anyone.
What do you make of that, Dan?
Well, it's hard, Peter. I mean, if the fans keep going back, you go back to Sir Alex and the time they had with him, and it was incredible. But the players they had then was unbelievable as well, Peter. And Tam knows, how much I've gone on about Stephen Robinson. And Roughie, I'd say that's what clubs do now. It is, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a revolving door, and one's going out one way, and another one's coming in, like Lampard and Tuchel. So he is taking his time. I still think Stephen Glass is favourite. I think he might be taking his time, so he interviews others, so it doesn't look as though he's been kind of favouritism towards Stephen Glass. But just what I'm hearing, I think Stephen Glass must be the favourite. He's done very well there. I know him. I know him well. I did a couple of deals with Stephen. He's a good guy. A very good pro as a player, and I would imagine he's taking that into management. But again, I think someone like Stephen Robinson deserves a challenge like that at a top club and see what he can do.
Yeah,
Peter, if Cormac's spoken to Sir Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex Ferguson would have thrown a couple of names into the bag, because that's what he does.
Yeah,
he gets people jobs. He sways owners that this is the way you should go. I'm not saying he'll tell them what to do, but he will be giving his opinion and what kind of guy you're needing.
I'll tell you right now, I mean, if they had a bit of money, Tam, I mean, my opinion on who would be great for Aberdeen as a boss that would absolutely get what they're all about, coaching and, re-energise them and take them in a different direction from the way they've been going over the last 26 years of not winning. I would pull out every stop to try and get Gordon Strachan. I think he's a coach wasted being a director of football at Dundee.
It's a good shout. And as much as that may sound to some people, with him being one of the Gothenburg greats, as maybe the heart ruling the head, then not at all. You're right, Peter. He's got the CV. You see what he did in Europe with Celtic. He's been there and done it. He was a brilliant player in his day, and in managerial terms these days, he's not exactly an old man. And, for all the runners and riders have been printing the newspapers every day, Peter, that I find that very, very refreshing. I hadn't even personally thought of Gordon Strachan, but you're right, I would agree, no harm to Dundee Football Club. But I think somebody like Strachan is wasted sitting up there in the stand as a director of football. In fact, I'd go with that. Forget Stevie Robinson, Gordon Strachan.
Yeah,
it sounds exciting.
For the first time in a while.
I don't think he would settle for second best up there. There'd be a lot of pressure if Strachan going back to a club where he has got legendary status, and quite rightly so. It's not as if he'd just begin up there to enjoy a bit of the fanfare as he walks down to the dugouts on a Saturday when the fans are back in, of course. But I find that really, really exciting, Peter. Good. In all seriousness, though, I think there's more likelihood that they will go for Stephen Robinson, and I think that would be a great, great choice for Aberdeen. But yeah, if I could have put myself in the shoes there of an Aberdeen fan, I would be excited, surely to goodness, at the thought of Gordon Strachan.
Peter, I actually didn't know that Gordon was actually still wanting to go into management. I mean, as I've told you before, I spent 3 months with him at Coventry, and it was just an absolutely amazing 3 months. I would have loved 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years with Gordon. I think he's absolutely brilliant. And I've said Stephen Robinson, but if you're talking someone like Gordon Strachan, and maybe why not bring in, if the chairman thinks Stephen Glass is a good candidate, why not bring Stephen Glass to work under him to take over after Gordon's maybe had enough?
Yeah, listen, for me, he's a top coach. I think he's a great man manager, and he also has a quality where he's not a checkbook manager. I mean, what he achieved at Celtic when the budget was completely halved from what had gone before, Roughie, deserves a special mention as well. I mean, that's why and I think he galvanised everyone and re-energised people following Scotland. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have a centre half worth his salt, you never know. It might have been Gordon Strachan leading us to a championships, Roughie.
No, I think Gordon's got what all good managers have got: respect in the game. What he's done in the game as a player and the clubs that he's managed. And that kind of manager walking into any dressing room gets the respect, and it does. I think make players try and come up to the standards that he set. We saw Neil Lennon doing it at Hibs. He demanded it, and Gordon would be the same. And I think you're right. Opportunity for him up there. Well liked. There's no doubt about that. But I think from the manager's point of view, I think the respect he would have for the players would be an added bonus.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Kenny Whitson says, sorry, different thing managing today. Strachan is outdated. What people who hate losing are outdated. I don't think so, Kenny. Too many people go for easy choices, sometimes cheap choices, sometimes people with no experience of what it takes to manage a big club. And Aberdeen are a big club. I think you need somebody who absolutely is a winner and will not suffer second best or start celebrating draws away from home. They need the edge again. I think they need somebody with attitude.
Can I say as well, Peter, Gordon Strachan has definitely not lost his sense of humour. A week past on Monday, he texted me something that was in relation to Muller, a wee joke thing, right? And I texted him back, how are you getting on, blah, 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 text. And time was getting on, so I signed off. It was nudging 9 o'clock. A week past on Monday, I'll remind you. And I said, right, I'll better let you go. You're probably away to watch Prince Harry and Meghan getting interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. And quick as a flash, he texted straight back, no, we're not allowed to watch that in this house. My wife says she's had enough of whinging gingers. Great line.
Yeah, brilliant, sharp as a tack. Oh, he's got a good sense of humour, wicked. But yep, hey, he's a winner. Just before we go, Messi, Roughie, got to pay a tribute to him. 767 games now. He's equalled Xavi's record appearances. He's still going strong. Scored a couple against Huesca in the for Barcelona in their 4-1 win. He's 34 trophies, Roughie. I still would love to see him as a swan song on UK shores. It would be great.
Yeah. And the goals he scores just on the tap-ins, they're spectacular. They're way ahead of players thinking of the opposition. Even the opposition don't know what he's going to do and how he does it. And I'm like you, I would love to see him down in England. I'd love to see him, at one of the big clubs down there, and we all can see. Well, I think we would see him more often, obviously, with the television down there. But I think it'd be great. But I don't think he's ever going to leave them. I really don't.
Yeah, okay. Nevertheless, it would be great just to see him for 2 or 3 years. Not that he needs the money, but it would still be good to see him week in, week out. Because the other thing about it is you just don't get to see him on the television, Tam, now, because the way the deals are, he's in an obscure channel that only I think Tam McManus can get with his 50-foot dish that he moves around in the top of his house.
Aye, and you know what, Peter? Let's be bold. Let's forget. He said bringing him to the UK. Bring him to Scotland. Bring him to Scotland for a swan song.
Aberdeen.
Could even be at the aforementioned Aberdeen. I've said for years, Aberdeen, the only club, the only scene. I know we've got Cove Rangers as well before MD corrects me, but the big city club up there, Aberdeen, of course. And in the era of stadia being sponsored by big companies, I still don't know why we're even talking about Pittodrie when one of the big oil companies should surely have moved into Aberdeen by now, put a load of money into the club, and if it was enough even to get Lionel Messi there for 1 year, just to see what happens, it would be great. I mean, you think in the past, the guys like Stainrod going to Falkirk, you had Chris Waddle as well for a very, very small period of time at Falkirk, and of course you saw what Davy Cooper, the ultimate legend for me, did at Motherwell. Completely transformed the club. I just think it'd be great. There's not enough players out there now, sadly, who get bums on seats, but I think Lionel Messi would maybe just do the trick.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, Tam, if that happens, then I will pay your mortgage off and then take you and Liz out for a meal in the summer. It's as simple as that.
From May the 17th.
I'm going to start saving up money. Anyway.
Only a 2 hour slot though. I've got 4 of them booked already. Just going to do it. My 4 favourite places. Do like a wee restaurant crawl. It'd be brilliant.
If you had your ideal meal, just a main course, Tam, what would it be on May 17th?
It would. The main course would still have to be. I'd still have to go Indian with a keema peas curry, mince and peas curry, with a very well-fired chapati-style paratha on the side, and a wee side dish of dal, and a really full-bodied bottle of red, maybe a Malbec.
Right, wow, that was absolutely specific, Darren. I am almost certain you're not going to be as in-depth as Tam. What would your main course be?
Well, I'd be in the Crab Shack, Peter, in the West End. Tempura squid, langoustines, lemon sole, fish. Just can't wait for that place opening again.
Roughie?
Yeah, I'd be sitting beside Darren. I'd have my Cullen skink, and then I'd have a big seafood platter. That would do me. I could sit there all day.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thankfully, I won't be hanging about with these 3 bores. I'll be having a Southern Comfort lemonade, a steak with a pepper sauce. Thanks for watching tonight. Good night.
Expect the best used car deal